This is the Neurosurgery Podcast.
Great. Welcome to the Neurosurgery Podcast. Happy holidays. I am super excited. And I are talking today with Arman Jahangiri. Arman, you want to introduce yourself to the podcast listeners?
Yeah, of course. Hey, everyone. Arman Jahangiri. I'm a neurosurgery, neuro-oncology fellow here at University of Miami, and I work with Rick Komatar.
Great. And tell us, where did you train? Medical school, residency, college?
Yeah, I had an interesting background. I went to the University of Houston in Houston, Texas. I had a t-shirt startup that I started in high school. So I was called cheapcampushirt.com at the time. So my warehouse was in Houston, so I wanted to be close to that. So I was going back and forth from my home to the university to my company. And then for medical school, I started at UT Southwestern and sort of got bitten by the research bug, went to UCSF, did a Howard Hughes Fellowship there, did my PhD there. So it was a 10-year track from medical school and graduate school. And then residency was at Emory University, which I had probably one of the best times of my life, learned a lot and got to see incredible stuff. And now I'm here at University of Miami doing a brain tumor fellowship.
Classic underachiever, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Is
listen,
the shirt company still going? Because I use rush order tees and I'm always looking.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the shirt company thing was incredible because I started it just out of a mere accident. Like it was just completely accidental because I was in a band and we were playing shows and we did a show and we made like $200 for the number of tickets that people came into the show and the tickets we sold. But then I made $750. This is in 2003 off the t-shirts. So I was like, this is the business to be in. And then I was in this program called the Joint Admissions Medical Program in college. And it was for people who from low socioeconomic backgrounds trying to get into medical school. And our first summer, we were all together in Houston, and there were kids from 8 different campuses in college in Texas that were there from different colleges. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are my guys. So I got 8 of those kids to open up shop for my company, and the t-shirt company just blew up. And then, I had a nice exit before I went to medical school.
classic Horatio Alger rags to riches story. I love it. Listeners love that. So, you're the second neurosurgeon we're having on who has a strong interest and, if you will, bona fides in the fight world, right? Mike Levy was on. He was in the boxing world for decades and decades, and you're really into to this type of sporting competition, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you
Yeah,
participate yourself? Do
I
you fight?
don't. So the funny thing is, what draws me to fighting is not because I love it, but it's because I hate it. And I think a lot of it came from my training at Grady and the amount of horrible head trauma that I saw. And I have some PTSD from some of the patients I've had throughout the years. I've had some bad, horrible venous ruptures, some really bad subdurals, epidurals. So I've always felt like, if you're not around to take care of it, somebody else well, and why not be around it and try to educate people, talk to the fighters, know what to be careful about, and try to have them have the best outcome because they're going to partake in it no matter what you say or what you do. So why not be an advocate for their safety?
That's exactly right, and you're touching on a very important point, which is trauma is one of the most relevant parts of neurosurgery that puts us
Of
in
course.
with everything. And I wanted to bring this up because I just remember it wasn't too long ago. It was on Friday, I think.
Yeah.
We were in the OR together, and you said I got to get out of the OR in time to make this Jake Paul fight, and I was like, "What? Like you guys have all these cases to do?" And you're like, "No, I'm going to be there ringside." And you're like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is important. I'm going to be involved in this. I'm like, okay, well, like whatever, go enjoy it, have a good time. But you really played a central role in that fight. I mean, I followed that only because I was like, this Anthony Joshua Jake Paul thing. This is like it's a spectacle, right? And here in Miami.
Oh my God, it was you know, Dr. Wang, it was a big mismatch. I was worried about him, and I happened to have connections to Jake through his staff, and some of those guys are my good friends. So as soon as I found out the fight was happening, I got nervous and I said, here's this kid going into this crazy fight. It's different than the Mike Tyson fight. This guy's fresh, there's a big mismatch. I am worried about him. So I talked to those guys, and I'm like, guys, what is your plan? And there wasn't, they are so good. I will tell you the way they treat Jake. It's almost like Ivan Drago. I mean, his diet, supplements, what he takes, his team is incredible. I think what was missing was that additional medical aspect of it. And I said, guys, I'm in Miami. We need to have a plan of if something goes wrong, what's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, he didn't walk out till like 11, but I got there around 7, and I met with all of the EMTs on ringside. Tried to reach out to some of the ringside doctors, and I said, hey guys, if something goes wrong, he needs to go to the best place in Florida, and that's University of Miami in Jackson. And depending on what it is, we need to be prepared. So I called the residents on call. I called the cranial attending. I called the spine attending. One of them happened to actually be at the fight. Greg was there, and everybody was prepared in case there was any sort of injury. I will tell you, the last thing I was thinking about was anything happen, any sort of OMFS facial fractures. But then, and I'm watching the fight, and I'm right there, and there were a couple of times where AJ, you know, obviously he's a head and neck above him, and he had him, and he was hitting him in the back of the head, and the entire uh, time I'm thinking of Prashad Cologne. I don't know if you know that story. He was an MMA fighter, had a big subdural because he got hit in the back of the head, but Jake looked okay.
Well,
So
shout
that
out to Greg Basil, right? Because he was there too. But here's the thing I want to ask you, because a lot of our listeners, they don't know about this fight, right? They don't follow this stuff, although it is a huge. I mean, I think Jake Paul, was he paid like $100 million for this fight or
I
something?
think over $90 million. Yeah,
So just to give people some background, right? Jake Paul is known in social media influencer. He fought Mike Tyson in that big fight a couple years ago.
mhm.
We actually went to go watch it with all the resident applicants that year. It was a lot of fun to watch in a group at a bar. And Anthony Joshua is a monster.
Monster.
He towers over everybody. His arms are so long. He looks like a movie actor boxer, right? And this was like a Rocky fight. So tell us about, because shout out to Jake Paul. He lasted. I mean, everybody said he's going to be
Rounds.
knocked out first round, right?
Yeah. So, before again, I will not share anything that's from the hospital because I respect HIPAA and Jake's privacy is important. But as a friend, afterwards, I was like, dude, why did you do this? And he said, I want to be respected, and I wanted to fight a real fighter, and no one else said yes. But AJ was the only one that was willing to go. And it's one thing to watch it on the even the Jumbotron. It's one thing to watch it on Netflix. It's another thing to be at just feet away and watching this behemoth man try to take out these reaches. Where I will commend Jake Paul. The first 2 rounds, I mean, he was moving so fast. I was gassed just watching him to try to stay out of it. And he did great, but he got tired. He got tired, and then he couldn't keep up with this guy who had a reach that was well over his reach, and he was just getting hit, and he couldn't keep up. I will say this, and he said it best. He said, we were in the locker room. He said, it wasn't my jaw that stopped me because my jaw it wasn't bothering me. It was that I was gassed, and I think if he had had his jaw broken in the first or second round, he would have kept going, and he would have gotten really, really hurt.
Wow. So, I mean, obviously, this conversation is an incredible springboard. If I don't see you wind up on Rogan to talk about this, I will feel like we are personally responsible and failing to get you there. Remember us when you're on the JRE talking about Jake Paul's jaw. But again, just so we can, before we dive into the broader conversation about head trauma, about neurotrauma in sports, for our listeners and our audience who haven't been following this story and didn't watch the fight, again, we're not going to touch on the hospital course and any of the actual treatment, but if you could just kind of close the loop on injuries sustained, how's he doing? What's the other side of the hospitalization?
Yeah, I mean, he's been very open about sharing the information. So if you go to his social media pages, you'll see he put up images of his care, his CT scan, the sort of procedures that he had done. I think there are some regulations in boxing where he can't box for 3 months after jaw injury like this. And I've had
Probably
a
why.
lot of 3 months. A lot of people say, well, this is a career ending thing. And I say, well, guess who else had his jaw broken? Muhammad Ali, right? So there have been a number of boxers that have had their jaws broken. It is not a career ending thing. And a lot of people bounce back. But I think, again, I will commend his team. He's surrounded himself with, but by people who are not a bunch of yes men, but people who truly care about him. And I think his team's going to be extremely diligent in making sure that he doesn't go back until he is completely safe and ready to do so.
Well, he's very lucky that you were there. And can I ask you, because in the heat of the moment, some people who have not done this kind of handling of professional athletics or even high school, right? So
Yeah,
when this is going on, as you said, you cannot predict what's going to happen in an athletic event. It's just like a war, right? How did you keep your wits about you? Because I mean, this is worse than a football situation where like there's a coach and there's like it's kind of like chaos, right? How do you keep your wits about you? And you're in the Casillas, the Heat Arena. It seats what? It's like 30,000 people, and people are going crazy, right? I
yeah.
mean, it's not a typical situation.
That's a I think that's a phenomenal question. A lot of people after this, I was posting pictures on Instagram because I was there having fun. I was there with my girlfriend Tiffany. She's also a medical doctor, general practitioner. So she was there, and I will tell you two things. I treated it like a neurosurgery case. I went in. You and I talked
Yeah,
in the
consult,
OR.
consult.
Exactly. You and I spoke in the OR beforehand. I had been planning for the last month. I was like, I hope he doesn't need me, but if something happens, I am prepared. I had a plan. Once I got there, instead of mingling with the celebrities and all the cool people, I was there talking to the EMTs, looking at the exit, seeing what where the how I even on my phone figured out how long it would take to go from the arena to the emergency room. And once sort of the things happened, I was in neurosurgeon mode, sort of thinking like a physician, or kind of like when you take a patient from the ED to the operating room. And Tiffany was on the phone, talking with people. I was on the phone talking with physicians at and we were just planning. I had his manager and his team started working with the police to have the escorts ready. I think it took us 6 minutes to get there from door to door. But again, taking a step back, I did not enjoy a minute of that fight. I was not there to have fun. Every punch, every push, every fall, I was analyzing to see if there was anything that needed to be done and if it was okay. And as neurosurgeons, we often are brought to these events. It's nerve wracking, especially when you meet their mother, when you meet their brother, and they're there worried and they're worried about their family member, and you're trying to tell them it's going to be okay, but you want to make sure they are. So it was very, very nerve wracking. I did not have fun being there, but I treated it like something that I wanted to be
You know,
there for my patient.
can I reinforce that point? Because I think a lot of people don't know. They watch like a movie like Any Given Sunday, and
Yeah,
they see that Matthew Modine character who's the doctor for the NFL, and he's flirting with the cheerleaders and all that, right? And I've worked the NFL sidelines, I worked the USC Trojan
of
sidelines.
course, of
When
course.
you're working, you're actually working.
Yeah.
People don't they think it's all glamorous, but actually you're watching everything and you're worried about it, right?
Yeah. I will share a story of a mentor of mine. I think he was instrumental in me becoming a neurosurgeon. His name is Howard Morgan. He was a neurosurgeon at UT Southwestern. I will reference a film that you've seen, Dr. Wang. They show you guys in training. There's a video of a Dallas Cowboys game where the neurosurgeon gets tackled. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And that's him. And he said, Arman, for a moment, I looked up to look at the score, and the next thing I knew, I was knocked out. And I think that sort of goes that even a second of not sort of being in it and understanding could end up getting you hurt, or unfortunately one of the players hurt. So I think, yeah, I mean, you have to be in it the entire time, and you're not there for a sporting event.
Yeah, I mean the Navy has sayings that bear through to neurosurgery. Attention to detail is the solution to a problem before it happens, which sounds like you were embodying that appropriately in this situation. So, if we can now kind of expand out from this case study to the broader question of head trauma in sports. And it's very interesting to me to hear that you came to this out of, as you said, not a love but a hatred of the sport and the damage that these people undergo to their heads. It's interesting that for all of the glamour and the sexy controversy that we talk about with neurotrauma in sports, it's always football. It's always football because it's the biggest and it's the most money and the most watched, and that's understandable.
Mhm.
But we see papers out about head trauma in soccer, doing head strikes.
Yeah.
Um, we had a resolution in the CSNS last year about slap fighting. And obviously, in a sport like boxing, you're punching people in the head. And so maybe opine for a moment on why you think there's less attention paid in the public zeitgeist to the obvious intrinsic neurotrauma and head injuries that go into a sport like boxing or other martial arts as compared to all of this controversy about football and the NFL. That I will I'll burn the obvious answer, which is that getting hit in the head is not intrinsic to the sport of football; it's intrinsic to the sport of boxing. But one way or another, these are people getting struck in the head. We should care about it. We should talk about it. So why do you think there's less maybe cultural fascination with it in the intrinsic pugilistic sports?
That's a great question. I think we have become a society where we separate celebrities, athletes from their human factor, and it's so easy to say that they signed up for it. I
Yeah.
think if you go back and watch the fight, AJ comes up to Pam, Jake's mom, and says, "Hey, sorry, mom, but it's just boxing." And everyone says these guys sign up for it. These guys sign up to get punched in the face. These guys sign up to get choked out. Where, like you said, in the NFL, it's a little bit different. Head trauma is there, but it's not the mainstay of the sport. So I think that's sort of the public perception of it.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's really interesting that that mentality of shut up and dance, right?
Yeah.
And I will say that in almost every other industry, including we on the show, we say this all the time, like buck up, just
Mhm.
get on, do your work. We say this to other people within neurosurgery, and that's a mentality that we pride ourselves on. Oh, it's 2 in the morning, I'm exhausted, I was up all day, but somebody's got an epidural, I have to take care of it. We pride ourselves on that. The difference being that we're not dying, right?
Yeah.
We're not destroying ourselves. We're just having a rough night. So, some of the you started to talk there about getting to know someone's mothers, maybe someone's mother, knowing them as friends, knowing them as people. How has your relationship with your patients on the other side of things, when you're on the job as a neurosurgeon and you meet someone who's not your friend but is a complete stranger and has had a head trauma, are these thoughts swirling in the back of your mind when you see people on the job now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Rick Komatar being my mentor, I think, the three A's that he pushes, availability, affability, and ability, sort of that's been my motto. I think one thing that I've tried to transform that in is the relationship with the patients. He'll tell you all of our patients get my cell phone number. I've made house calls. I will uh, I will go above and beyond. So they send me pictures. I've gone to their houses for dinner. I feel like if you are in our care, you are my family. I joke around to a lot of patients. I'm like, we're like Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family. But
That's
at the
pretty
end of the day, I used to tell this to my junior residents as a chief in residency. I'd be like, guys, the ones that were having some issues with patient care, I'm like, if somebody's meeting a neurosurgeon, it is most likely the worst day of their life. You have to understand that, and you have to be there for them as if you are one of their family members, and you have to treat them like they're your brother, sister, mother, grandfather. And if you do anything else, you failed at your job. So if anybody's meeting you, you have to be that person for them. And when we fail at that, we fail at being a good neurosurgeon, despite and regardless of the results, despite the outcome, And I think that's the thing that we should all try to live by. And that's what I've tried to do. I told Jake's mom, I said, he was like my little brother. He was not Jake Paul. The moment I found out he broke his jaw. and everything else went out. And I would have done the same thing for somebody else. And I've done that for other people. This year, as a junior resident, there are, right before this podcast, one of my patients that I operated on at Emory just texted me just to check in and say, "Hey, doc, it's my birthday. I'm doing well. Just wanted to say thank you." And I'm going to call him afterwards. So I think that's sort of the approach that we should all have, and we would want if we were on the patient side.
Well, we know your team has excellent clinical results and also provides fantastic care. We see it every day. So hats off to you guys for being a model for others to emulate, right? But I want to take this a little further where you were talking about being at the fight. Now, one of the things that I tell patients, and it bothers me a little bit, that I think the most egregious player here is like the Marvel movie series,
Hmm.
where people have this idea like you can like jump off a building and get hit by a car and you're going to be okay. And you know, the reality is for the average human, you and Joe Rogan talks about this, you can get punched in the face and just die, right? Or you can fall on a sidewalk and die. And now you're at ringside and you're seeing the kind of, I mean, these are professional boxers. It's not like me hitting some guy in a bar. Like it is, these people are trained to knock people out, right? When you see this happen, what kind of message do you think people should receive? I mean, we know this sport's fun to watch, but do you ever worry like kids think like, oh yeah, it's okay because you can just punch people and they're going to survive? Because Jake Paul took a lot of hits. Any one of those hits would have maybe killed me, right? I would be dead, right? Is there, these people are sort of superhuman, right? This is not something that we can assume is just translating across the species.
I think they're superhuman. I think they know how to respond to some of these punches that are coming to them despite being tired, despite being having been punched so many times. But I think they also tend to be lucky at times. I told we were in the locker room and I was like, dude, that punch was here. Had it been 3 to 4 inches higher, you would have never been the same. Luck has to play into the factor. There are the number of boxers that have died throughout the years because of head trauma is countless. So my message to the kids is that maybe try chess, maybe try some other sport. This is not the way to do it. And are we going to have, neuroprotective agents that we can give to people in the future, people for use things in neuronal regeneration? Yes, those things are out there. But the best way to go about this is to not have the head trauma. And I don't like the sport. But until the day that it stops happening, I think people like us, people from our profession, have to be there and try to bring regulation, bring protocols to help the guys who are out there risking their lives to make money for themselves and their families have the best outcome if something were to happen. Because we are the scientists and the physicians that understand head trauma better than anybody else. And I think being advocates is the only way to go.
What a beautiful message. I think that there's so much truth in what you just said about the people in the ring. And then also for us in our profession, you talk about them being able to respond and anticipate things, even if they're out of it and tired. It's like we always say, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your training. And this statement you make about luck, I think is so presciently true. We always say it's better to be lucky than good, and I hate that. It drives me
Mhm,
crazy when
mhm.
people say that because that may be true in a moment, but over a life and a career, you obviously want to be good and not rely on your luck. But that being said, I believe in luck. I believe in luck religiously. I have luck. I'm a lucky
Yeah,
person, and I
yeah,
know it. I tried to resist skeptically believing in it for
for sure.
decades of my life, but at a certain point it's undeniable. And so I think for these people that rise to this elite level in a sport, they don't just get lucky in moments. They're the people who are lucky in several moments over time. And that's kind of a selection they go through. They're the ones who happen to make it through this series of potential catastrophes. And so I absolutely adore what you just said. I wonder if before we wrap this conversation up, so you can call your former patient, um, I have one question for you. And I
Of
know
course.
we've been skirting gray areas about what we want to
Yeah.
discuss in public here, but it's a bit of a personal question. I'm going to put it to you though. What was the name of your band?
Scala, we were a ska band. Yeah.
Scalala.
Scalala.
And what
We
did you
used-
do in this band?
I was the drummer. Yeah, I was a
Really?
drummer. Yeah.
Okay, well, you showed me yours. I was in a band, guitar and vocals. We were called Triple Crown because there were 3 of us,
I
and we
love
were
it.
just that creative.
I love it. I love it.
Scalala. Well, that's
Oh,
phenomenal. Armand, this has been a fantastic conversation. Like I said,
thank you
if
both.
anyone out there hears this, put this man on the JRE to talk about the neurosurgery of pugilistic sports.
Yeah,
I as an ardent and avid listener of the JRE, I hope to hear you on the show. But for now,
thank you.
thank you for gracing our humble podcast.
Thank you guys for
Armand.
having
Thank
me.
you
It's
for
been a
coming on.
blast.